Lesson 2. Hierarchy. Ancient Greek society had a hierarchical structure that determined an individual's social status and privileges. The hierarchy was based on factors such as birth, wealth, and citizenship. Here is a general overview of the ancient Greek hierarchy. Citizens. Citizens were the highest ranking members of the ancient Greek society. They had political rights, including the ability to vote, hold public office, and participate in the democratic process. Citizenship was typically inherited through the father, and only freeborn men who were not slaves or foreigners could be citizens. Next was metics. Metics were freeborn individuals who were not citizens of a particular city-state but resided within its territory. They were often foreigners or descendants of foreigners. Metics had limited rights and were subject to certain obligations, such as paying taxes and serving in the military as required. Free women. Free women in ancient Greece had limited rights and were primarily confined to the domestic sphere. They were expected to marry, bear children, and manage the household. While they had some legal protections, their social and political participation was restricted. Slaves. Slavery was widespread in ancient Greece, and slaves were at the bottom of the social hierarchy. Slaves were considered property and had no rights or freedoms. They were owned by individuals or the state and performed various tasks, including domestic work, agricultural labour, and skilled craftsmanship. Within each of these categories there were further divisions based on wealth, occupation, and social standing. For example, among citizens there will be wealthy aristocrats, middle-class individuals, and poorer citizens. The social hierarchy also varied across different city-states. Jobs. Ancient Greeks had a wide range of occupations and jobs which varied depending on factors such as social status, location, and time period. Here are some common jobs and occupations in ancient Greece. Farmers. Agriculture was a crucial occupation in ancient Greece. Farmers cultivated crops such as wheat, barley, olives, and grapes, and they also raised livestock including sheep, goats, and cattle. Artisans and craftsmen. Skilled artisans and craftsmen played a vital role in ancient Greek society. They included potters, blacksmiths, metalworkers, weavers, sculptors, painters, and jewellers. These individuals produced various goods, including pottery, metalwork, textiles, and artwork. Merchants and traders. Trade and commerce were significant in ancient Greece. Merchants and traders engaged in both local and international trade, exchanging goods such as olive oil, wine, pottery, textiles, and precious metals. They often travelled by sea and established trading networks throughout the Mediterranean. Soldiers and warriors. Military service was highly valued in ancient Greece. Men served as soldiers in city-state armies, such as the hoplites, who fought in phalanx formations. Some men also served as mercenaries, fighting for pay in foreign armies. Politicians and statesmen. Men who held political power and served in government positions were known as politicians and statesmen. They participated in democratic process, held public office, and made decisions regarding the city-state's governance. Philosophers and scholars. Ancient Greece was known for its philosophers and scholars engaged in intellectual pursuits. Prominent figures such as Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle contributed to philosophy, mathematics, science, and literature. Priests and priestesses. Religion played a significant role in ancient Greece society. Priests and priestesses served in temples, conducted religious ceremonies, and perform rituals dedicated to various gods and goddesses. Doctors and healers. Ancient Greeks had a rudimentary understanding of medicine. Doctors and healers treated illnesses, injuries using herbal remedies, diet and physical therapies. They also performed surgeries and set broken bones. Teachers and educators. Education was highly valued in ancient Greece. Teachers and educators taught subjects such as reading, writing, maths, music and physical education to boys from wealthy families. Slavery. Slavery was a common practice in many ancient civilizations, including ancient Greece. Slaves were considered property and were owned by individuals or households. Life for an ancient Greek slave varied depending on their owner and their specific circumstances. They were usually captured in wars, bought from slave markets, or born into slavery. Slaves in ancient Greece performed various tasks depending on their skills and abilities. Some worked as domestic servants, while others were employed in agriculture, mining, or as labourers. Slaves were an essential part of the Greek economy and society as they provided the labour needed for various activities. However, it's important to note that not all Greeks owned slaves, and the treatment of slaves varied. Some slaves were treated well and had certain rights, while others faced harsh conditions and mistreatment. Slavery was a complex and controversial aspect of ancient Greek society, and it eventually became a topic of debate among philosophers and thinkers at that time. Here are some aspects of life that were common among ancient Greek slaves. 1. Work. Slaves were expected to work for their owners, performing various tasks like household chores, farming, or working in mines or workshops. The type of work and conditions varied, but slaves generally had little control over their own labour. 2. Lack of freedom. Slaves had no personal freedom and were considered the property of their owners. They could not make decisions about their own lives, and their owners had complete control over them. 3. Limited rights. Slaves had limited legal rights and protections. They could not own property, marry freely, or participate in political life. Slaves were subject to the will and whims of their owners. 4. Harsh treatment. While some slaves were treated relatively well, others faced physical abuse, mistreatment and harsh living conditions. Slaves were often seen as inferior to free citizens and were sometimes subjected to punishment or cruelty. 5. Social status. Slaves were at the bottom of the social hierarchy in ancient Greece. They were considered property rather than individuals and were often stigmatised by society. It's important to note that not all slaves had the same experiences, and they were able to gain their freedom through various means, such as being granted freedom by their owners or purchasing their freedom. However, the overall condition of slavery in ancient Greece was one of limited freedom, hard work and a lack of personal rights.